All right, everyone. This is the video to explain Q3 of the current events questionnaire. Q3 is about the interaction. So the question is, describe the nature of the interaction between the actors. Did their interaction include cooperation, bargaining, whether coercive or non-coercive, or both? And then provide evidence to support what type of interaction it was. So the two types of interactions we have are cooperation, when at least one actor is better off and no actor is worse off, and bargaining, where gains for one actor lead to losses for the other. And bargaining can include coercion or not. Coercion, remember, is using threats to advance specific demands. If a threat is being made to get the other side to give you what you want, then coercion is being used. But it doesn't have to include coercion. So friends and allies also bargain over outcomes to various things, but they're not threatening. So you can have bargaining that is coercive, and you can have bargaining that is not coercive. And you need to identify, if you have bargaining, which of these it is. And also remember that your interaction can include both cooperation and bargaining. So maybe there's cooperation to increase total benefit. We're going to have a trade agreement so that trade makes both countries better off, but we have to bargain to determine how the benefits are going to be divided. Am I going to lower tariffs on this item even more to help you, or am I not? So you still get help, but helped less because of what we do. So cooperation, because we want to increase total benefit, but bargaining on exactly how that benefit is going to be divided amongst the actors. Additionally, regardless of whether it's cooperation, bargaining, or both, you need to explain why the type of interaction you identified is the interaction that is going on. You need to justify your choice, explain why. So back we are again to the signing of the armistice to end World War I, November 11th, 1918. I identify that this interaction was bargaining because what was very good for the Allies and gains that the Allies would make came at Germany's expense. By Germany signing this, they were actually hurting their cause because they had to give up things that were in the terms of the agreement. And the Allies would be good. Now, yes, Germany, the benefit would be to stop losing lives, and maybe it was the best they could get, but it still involved expenses for Germany. And this was clearly coercive bargaining, because if the Germans didn't agree, then their army would be annihilated. The threat behind the signing of the agreement was, if you don't sign, we will continue fighting the war and we will annihilate you. The Allies would benefit, Germany would not, would be harmed, and it was under the threat of, if you don't sign, we will defeat you and we will take more than we would get if you signed this agreement. How would I justify this? Well, I would describe the situation on the battlefield and how close Germany was to actually losing. And I might include some or all of the terms of the agreement to illustrate how bad the terms were for Germany. I might also talk about the fact that Germany had no outside options. If Germany maybe had another ally who was going to come in on Germany's behalf, maybe it had an outside option to signing. But the reversion outcome for Germany was continued fighting and defeat. And so because the reversion outcome was terrible for Germany, signing was better. That helps to explain why this is coercive and why it was bargaining. If we also want to talk about agenda setting, the Allies presented a complete agreement, making it difficult for Germany to set terms itself. They came with a ready-made set of terms, which they had actually sent to the German government and said, these are our terms. And so when the negotiator left to sign the agreement, there was hope that on the margins they may be able to soften, but they basically were given the terms of surrender. And so the Allies had said, this is what you get. Take it or leave it. And they tried to do a little negotiating, but it didn't work. So these are the kinds of details that I would talk about in order to justify that this was bargaining with coercion. Okay, now I want to note that the US, Britain, and France had all cooperated to create the terms of the armistice, and they had bargained over those terms. The US wanted to be a little bit more forgiving in the terms, and Britain and France were like, oh, hell no. So among those three actors, there was both cooperation to figure out what they were going to do together, and then bargaining over those terms. So if our event had been the Allied agreement of the terms of German surrender, then we would have had both of these, cooperation and bargaining. But that is not the event. The event was the signing itself. And so there wasn't really any cooperation happening. It was, you either sign this or you're done. And that is why the event of signing the armistice is bargaining. But again, if our event had been creating the terms of the armistice among UK, US, and France, then we would have had both types. And again, sources. After Q3, you're going to list the sources that you used to answer this question. All right, we've got one more substantive question. That'll be in the next video.